Tonight, we are witnessing the structural disintegration of the Californian dream. A memo began circulating through the 700-acre industrial labyrinth of Boeing's Long Beach facility, a site that has been the beating heart of American aerospace since World War II. It wasn't just a layoff notice. It was a death warrant for California's manufacturing soul. Boeing has officially confirmed a total, permanent shutdown of its C-17 operations and the Southern California Defense Corridor, a move that vaporizes 5,300 high-paying jobs in a single fiscal stroke. For the governor, this is the fall of the fortress. This massive complex, which once produced the workhorses of the Air Force, is now slated to become a ghost town by December 31st, 2026. The metaphor is inescapable. The wings are being clipped off the Golden State. As David Scott's emergency report highlighted just 48 hours ago, if California can't keep a titan like Boeing after 80 years of shared history, then no one is safe. This isn't just corporate restructuring, it's a systemic exodus. The Pacific firewall that Gavin Newsom promised would protect the state from the national economic cooling has been breached. As the sirens sound across the Southland, the reality is clear. The crown jewel of the West Coast is being liquidated. We are no longer talking about a recession. We are talking about a deindustrialization event that shifts the geopolitical weight of the United States toward the zero tax havens of the South and East. The silence in the Long Beach hangars is deafening, and it is the sound of an era ending. Behind the corporate announcements lies a deeper, more corrosive reality: the total collapse of public trust. Fresh data released by the Public Policy Institute of California, PPIC, and Emerson polling within the last 72 hours paints a picture of a leadership in a terminal dive. According to the latest PPIC statewide survey, a staggering 71% of Californians now believe the state is headed for bad times financially over the next 12 months. This is not just a jittery market. It is a full-blown crisis of confidence. Newsom's approval rating has hit a jagged floor, with only 44% of adults supporting his current trajectory. Even more alarming for the governor is the breakdown of his core base. Among independent voters, the group that usually provides the buffer for his political survival, disapproval has spiked to 63%. The wrong direction metric has become a permanent fixture of the Californian psyche. When you cross-reference these numbers with the Boeing shutdown, the political math becomes impossible. How do you pitch a California renaissance when the voters themselves are preparing for a depression? The latest Emerson College polling, released this week, shows that for the 2026 gubernatorial primary, the field is wide open, with Republicans like Chad Bianco and Democrats like Eric Swalwell and Katie Porter already carving up the remains of Newsom's influence. The governor is no longer a kingmaker. He is a man watching his kingdom sell off its assets to pay for a failing vision. The polling isn't just a snapshot. It's an autopsy of a dying political brand. This is where the political thriller turns into a financial horror story. We are tracking a black swan convergence of unprecedented scale. Boeing's Q4 2025 earnings, published on January 27, 2026, initially looked like a miracle, an $8.2 billion profit. But look closer. That profit was a mirage, fueled by the $9.6 billion fire sale of its digital aviation solutions unit. Strip away the accounting tricks, and you find a company carrying a crushing $54.1 billion debt load, with $8 billion maturing this year. Simultaneously, California is staring into a $50 billion plus budget deficit. The state is attempting to plug this hole with a controversial billionaire tax and wealth levies that investor place analysts warn will trigger a forced asset sale across blue states. The synergy of these two failures is catastrophic. As Boeing burns cash in the first half of 2026, a fact confirmed by CFO Jay Malave just yesterday, it is pulling its entire supply chain with it. 193 California-based suppliers are now facing immediate insolvency. This is a liquidity contagion. The bond market is beginning to price in a state of California risk premium that we haven't seen in decades. If the aerospace giant can't service its debt, while the state can't fund its social safety net, the resulting vacuum will suck the remaining capital out of the San Francisco Bay and Los Angeles basins. The insurance markets are already reacting, with property values in Long Beach expected to decline by 7% as the factory gates lock. We are witnessing a twin-engine flameout, corporate debt and state deficit falling in tandem, creating a downward spiral that no amount of federal intervention can arrest. The scenes from the governor's office in Sacramento are described by insiders as a mixture of paralyzing shock and incandescent rage. Gavin Newsom, once the polished face of the new American West, is now a man in isolation. The Boeing announcement was the ultimate betrayal of his narrative. Reports from within the state capitol suggest the governor was blindsided by the timing, having spent months attempting to negotiate a green aerospace tax credit that Boeing effectively ignored in favor of the brutal efficiency of South Carolina and international diversification. He is facing the classic psychological disintegration of a leader who believed his own propaganda. The Manhattan Project-style mobilization he promised for AI and technology is being overshadowed by the gritty, industrial reality of thousands of families receiving a countdown timer to unemployment. He is a leader whose Pacific firewall has turned into a Pacific cage. As he prepares for his 2026 exit, he isn't looking at a legacy of growth, but a legacy of managed decline. The charismatic veneer is cracking. In public, he remains defiant, but the 47% job approval rating, his highest in months, is a hollow victory when 71% of his constituents believe he is leading them into a financial abyss. The isolation is both political and psychological. He is the captain of a flagship that is taking on water faster than the pumps can handle, and for the first time, he knows it. The silence from his usual donors and tech allies is the most chilling development of all. In a political thriller, the most dangerous enemy is the one standing right behind you. As Newsom struggles with the Boeing fallout, the silent competitors are making their moves. The Emerson polling data from the last 48 hours confirms a shift. The Democratic elite is no longer waiting for Newsom's signal. Representator Katie Porter and Eric Swalwell are already fragmenting the base, positioning themselves as the sane alternatives to the current chaos. Even more startling is the rise of Republican Chad Bianco, who has seen a 2% jump in support in just the last few weeks, feeding off the law and order and economic stability vacuum left by the governor's failing policies. This isn't just an election, it's a realignment. The tech billionaires of the Silicon Valley are quietly shifting their capital. While Newsom tries to maintain the appearance of a unified Democratic front, the real power players are looking at the math. They see a state with a 13.3% tax burden losing to states with 0% corporate taxes. They see Boeing's South Carolina plant producing the same aircraft for 23% less cost, a $112 billion difference that made the California shutdown inevitable. The elites are pragmatists. They are abandoning the sinking ship. The betrayal isn't just a political move, it's a survival instinct. When the major donors stop calling and the secondary candidates start raising record amounts, the governor is no longer leading a party. He's presiding over a fracture. The knives are out, and they aren't coming from the opposition. They are coming from the people who used to sit at his table. We conclude this emergency broadcast with a technical postscript on the mathematical impossibility of a California recovery under current conditions. This is the final accord. The Boeing factory shutdown is not an isolated event. It is a symptom of industrial entropy. To replace the 5,300 jobs lost in Long Beach, California would need to attract over 500 mid-sized startups, each with perfect success rates. A statistical impossibility in an environment of rising interest rates and regulatory strangulation. The state's debt-to-GDP ratio is approaching a point of no return as the tax base erodes. When high-income earners and industrial titans like Boeing leave, they take the multiplier effect with them. For every Boeing job lost, 2.8 secondary jobs in the community vanish. That's nearly 15,000 regional jobs wiped out by one boardroom decision. The technical reality is that you cannot fund a 21st century social welfare state on a 19th century infrastructure that is being systematically dismantled. As the sun sets over the Pacific today, it shines on a state that has lost its competitive edge. The Golden State is entering a gray winter of its own making. There is no fix because the variables of the equation, taxes, regulations, and cost of living, have become so skewed that the output is always negative. Boeing knew it, the pollsters know it, and soon the voters will feel it. This is the end of the era of Californian exceptionalism. The engines have stopped. The flight is over. The only question left is how hard the landing will be. Good night, and may God help the Golden State.